You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
Morning, Auburn family, and welcome back to Inside the Jungle, your source for Auburn men's basketball analysis and discussion on the E2C Network. This is a mega podcast that we got going here. We're recording this Sunday night after the big final week of the regular season in college basketball as we head into conference tournaments. And this time next week, we will know the field of 68 to go into March Madness. And to do that, to talk about the Mississippi State game, South Carolina game, all things going around college basketball and Auburn men's basketball and your SEC champions, I brought in my dad and co-host again. Dad, this is a big one, and I'm excited for it.
I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this one for a while, maybe a couple years, actually. Looking forward to the SEC champs, outright champs. Nobody else can claim it. Number one seed in the tournament we start Thursday.
That's right. We'll be talking
Friday.
about.
We start Friday.
We start Friday.
We don't play till Friday.
You're right. We will talk about the SEC tourney here in a little bit. First, I want to talk about, before we get into the two games that Auburn played this week, I want to talk about how do you lose at home in Coach K's final game? Not even, it wasn't like a fluke. North Carolina was just better.
Beat the stuffings out of them.
Look, both of us are North Carolina fans. I've been a fan of North Carolina basketball for a long time now. The Sweet 16 game put me in a swirl. Obviously, I was rooting for the Tigers, but that put me through a swirl. As a North Carolina fan, I didn't know what to think of that Sweet 16 game when Auburn literally could throw it out of their butt and it went in. But look, Saturday was so enjoyable for me, and I'm sure it was for you and for all of the North Carolina fans, and most of the country thought this was absolutely hilarious. If you weren't a Duke fan, you thought this was absolutely hilarious that they lost, and Coach K will go out in a losing streak on his court. and sure enough, it's North Carolina and Hubert Davis that got it done.
So I did not think it could be done. And you said Carolina's going to win. And I said, no, they're not. There's so much on this. And it was really, I could not have been happier that the game in front of it went into overtime.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to watch all the Coach K stuff. By the time it switched over, it had started already. So we didn't have to see Coach K walk out and everybody love all over him and ESPN love all over him. And Carolina beat that Duke team by scoring 55 second half points and did not substitute.
They didn't substitute. RJ Davis, Caleb Love, Brady Manick, Leaky Black, and Armando Bacot played all 20 minutes in the second half, and they scored 55 points to end Coach K's regular season run.
Coach K court. There were people who paid
thousands and thousands
of dollars, and they watched them get beat. Yes. So yesterday was one of those days where Auburn wins, Carolina wins, and that other school across the other side of the state loses. So it was a great basketball day.
Yeah, it was a great basketball day, and that's a great segment into what I want to talk about next. What in the world? What are they doing? What is J.D. Davidson? People actually thought that J.D. Davidson was going to win Freshman of the Year this year in the SEC. No.
Yes, when they recruited him and got him from Auburn wanted him as well.
Yeah,
but I heard a lot of Alabama fans say, "I'd rather have Davidson than Smith," and I'm like, okay,
you're gonna regret that.
We'll see. He's been playing in 3A basketball in South Alabama, and he's not ready.
He looks
needs
lost.
Another year.
Of course he does.
Yeah, and he needs to cut his hair.
I agree. No, but we've gone completely offset. We haven't even talked about Auburn yet. We're a few minutes into this podcast, but this is the fun that amazing Saturday was. But what a week of basketball. Auburn falls to number 5 in the AP poll after losing to Tennessee last Saturday, and got 2 revenge W's to win the SEC outright and become your SEC regular season champions and go into the SEC tournament as a 1 seed with a win at Mississippi State in overtime and then a win at home in Neville Arena against South Carolina. Big games for Auburn, big games. And let's go ahead and break them down.
So real quick, we lost to Tennessee last weekend, dropped to number 5. There was a lot of consternation on the Auburn fan base. Mm-hmm. And Auburn knew then, in order to win this thing outright and not share it, we have to win 2 ball games, one on the road, one at home.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of toughness to go out there and win both of those ball games the way they did. You and I went to the Mississippi State game, as did a bunch of Auburn fans. The whole upper deck was Auburn, and then the lower bowl was about half Auburn and half Mississippi State students. And that was a fun trip, but a late night when it went into overtime. Yeah,
a really, really late night. We got back around 1:15 in the morning in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. But it was a great atmosphere. Lots and lots of Auburn fans, just like you said. There was probably more Auburn people than Mississippi State people there, and it was a great crowd. The Jungle brought, I think, 2 or 3 buses, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But in this game, a fantastic start in this game. Mm-hmm. Zep with 3 straight threes or something like that. Jabari's hitting threes. Auburn jumps out to a 19-point lead, 39-20. And from then to about 2 minutes left in the game, this was all Mississippi State. And it was through the paint. And they had 50 points in the paint compared to Auburn's 24 points in the paint. And Auburn had no answer for Tolu Smith. They were guarding.
He's a good player.
Tolu Smith was doing whatever he wanted to do. Mississippi State did not hit a 3 in this game. They went 0 for 13. It was part of the reason that Auburn had such a great start is Mississippi State started jacking threes to start off. And they're not a good 3-point shooting team. They went 0 for 13 in this game. But a complete collapse against Mississippi State, if that sounds familiar with the football team. Look, that was hard to watch.
Do that.
I thought we were about ready to do it again with a collapse against the Bulldogs. But no, Auburn answers this comeback from Mississippi State, gets this thing into overtime, has a chance to win it with Jabari at the final seconds, but not a good possession, not a good look for, every look's a good look for Smith.
Pretty good for Jabari,
not the look that you could have gotten with him. And then in overtime, I don't know what happened to Katie Johnson, but apparently he took steroids and completely took over and won the game for us.
So it's a really weird game.
Yeah.
Scored 40 in the first half, scored 21 in the second half, and scored 20 in overtime.
Yeah.
So we went from scoring 21, a drought for Auburn. We go through these times sometimes where we can't seem to get the ball to go in the basket. I thought we were getting some good, decent looks. The problem is they were the wrong guys getting the looks.
Yeah.
Cambridge had several looks from that corner 3 that he will not turn down.
Yeah.
Flanagan had several looks. He made one that bounced around, mid-range jumper that bounced around, went in, but he just did not. He turned it over several times, and it was a struggle. That the first half, when everything that flowed so smoothly stopped in the second half, and nothing flowed smoothly. Usually though, and the guy calling the game Saturday, the guy that used to play at Tennessee, made a good point in that South Carolina game. And I'm bringing it up here because usually if Auburn goes on a drought, our defense is good enough to make you go on the drought with us. And at Mississippi State in the second half, we didn't make them go on the drought with us. Mm-hmm. We went on a drought and they were getting layups. And that Smith dude can play. Tolu Smith is a player.
Yeah, he finished with 22 and 12 on the game.
Yeah, Molinar is a really good player, but Zep Jasper had shut him down almost the entire game. For him to end up with 14, that's shutting Molinar down. He's really good. Brooks had 10, hit the shot that put him ahead in the midway through the second half. Yep. They went up by as many as 5. Jabari hit a gigantic 3-pointer and then a gigantic mid-range 2-pointer to tie it up. Got into overtime, and you're right. KD scored 2 points in the game and scored 12 more in overtime, ended up with 14.
Yeah.
That's the KD. He was taking the ball to the basket. He was shooting well. He was defending. Bruce went with the 3-point guard lineup.
Yep.
And it really caused havoc on defense. They turned the ball over multiple times.
Yep.
And KD was just fantastic.
That's right. I agree. But yeah, talk about KD in that overtime, 12 points in that overtime. When you talk about somebody that's just taken over the game, simple enough.
Mm-hmm.
I completely took over the game. He went left side on maybe the first or second possession and put us up 1. And then he made a 3. And then we missed a shot, and then they just went the other way. And Walker sent with a huge block, a chase down block off the backboard, and Zepp or Wendell threw it way up.
Wendell.
And in the broadcast, you can see Jabari's at like midcourt, and Wendell throws it, and everybody thinks that in the broadcast it's going to Jabari. No, us in the arena saw KD, who got knocked down and was getting up to go up. Might as well just stay down for the offense. Standing right there, caught the ball, got the M1, and converted it. 3 possessions. Completely changed the game, completely changed overtime.
8 points.
And won the game. It completely won the game. So, go ahead.
He deserves a lot of credit for that game.
Yeah.
Because they were doing everything they could to harass Jabari. That's what teams are going to do. They're going to be as physical as the referee will let them. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. But they're grabbing, they're holding, they're doing everything they can, everything the officials will let go. And KD was like, they're not doing it to me. He drove in under control that first drive. He was on the right side of the court, drove across the lane, kind of up and under, layup, went in. And I think that sparked him because the next time down, he was like, get me the ball. And it was no hesitation, 3-pointer, nothing but net.
Yep.
And he was off and running.
Yep.
And when he gets going like that, he is hard to deal with. People forget he was a top 40 recruit coming out of high school. He was him and Sharif were battling for the top spot in Georgia for a while. So, I mean, he's not a slouch. He can score and he can defend, and we defended. And then Jabari put the capper on it.
Look, we'll get to Jabari in a second, but that dunk at the end of the game, I write for Auburn Daily on the Sports Illustrated, Auburn Sports Illustrated coverage at auburndaily.com. And Mike G, who also writes there from the War Report, said in our chat, he was like, I'm going to write an article about how Jabari never dunks, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And at that point, I was like, yeah, he had the dunk against Yale where he's wide open down the lane and tomahawked it. But he just doesn't really – he had 2 dunks in this Mississippi State game where it was just like, whoa. Yeah. The first one where he went baseline and drove and just
the two-handed,
rip through two-hand dunk. I was like, well, that's a pro move. I literally like – and then the dunk, the cap it off, the and-one dunk in overtime with the final possession for Auburn. Dude, I lost it. I lost it when I saw that because that's a screw you, screw all y'all type of dunk. I'm just better.
Yep. He had enough. The game was over. He knew it was over. It was time to put on the little show to finish it off. Went up one-handed, got fouled on the baseline and crammed it through. And the best part of the whole dunk is watching the reaction of Jasper, who's on the baseline, and he's just going crazy. Yeah. And KD sprints to the student section at the other end of the court. Like Jabari's calling him back after he goes as he's walking the free throw line so he can get a high five from him. But sprints, and those two reaction as compared to Walker Kessler, who kind of went, yeah, I see this every day.
I see that before.
Well, I see this. This dude just this all the
personalities.
Yeah.
Well, the personalities of this team are great, and you see that in pregame, you see that in postgame, and interviews, and on the sideline with reactions. And I mean, every one of these guys have awesome guys, awesome personalities. you go back and you look at that clip of this dunk and you just go back each time and watch a specific person each time. It's just hilarious. Wendell hardly reacts at all. Yeah. He's like, well, that's why I passed him the ball for. Yeah. Zepp goes ballistic. Zepp is jumping before Jabari is dribbling. Yeah. KD kind of leans back as Jabari dunks it, and then, just like you said, sprints to the Mississippi State student section. It's hilarious. You go watch Walker, doesn't react at all. He gets the best view of this dunk.
Yeah, it's right there.
Right there in the lane. If Jabari missed the dunk, Walker was going to put it back in.
Because it was his man that fouled that went over Jabari. And fouled Jabari.
Yeah, it was Tolu Smith, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
And it doesn't react at all. You watch the bench guy. You watch guys like Stretch and Chris Moore and Dylan Cardwell who are on the bench.
Yeah,
hilarious, absolutely hilarious reaction. I completely recommend going back and looking at all those guys. And
that's fun.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But let's talk about another guy. We kind of just mentioned him earlier. Walker Kessler only had 4 points in this game, ended with 10 rebounds, but only went 2 for 4 from the field. He came out in pregame with a shoulder brace on. And I kind of got concerned immediately. And you kind of saw with it early, he showed a little bit of uncomfort with that left shoulder, not his shooting shoulder, but
that's his blocking shoulder, by the way.
That's his blocking shoulder, exactly. Yeah. That's way more important to me.
I agree.
But you saw a little bit of uncomfortableness in that shoulder, and Bruce said it after the game when he was asked about it. He said, "Yeah, he tweaked it a little bit in practice. It's just more of a precautionary thing. He should be fine. He's just kind of working through it." And
I think he got hit. I think he got hit at Tennessee.
He may have got dinged up at Tennessee. Yeah.
And then re-injured it in practice.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about more of his shoulder and when we talk about the South Carolina game, but he looks a lot better. As the second play of the game against South Carolina, I was like, oh, his shoulder's fine. After the poster dunk that he put that child on. But look, he looked uncomfortable. He finished with 10 rebounds. You'll take that from Walker. You want him to get more looks, but obviously the game plan of this game was a little bit away from Walker due to his shoulder.
Yeah, and Jabari with 27 and 10. The thing that bothers me a little bit, and I looked at you about midway through the second half. We were sitting up in the upper deck, and I said, if we can't get a rebound, we are not going to win this basketball game. And it still bothers me. It was with Tennessee and it was with Mississippi State. Mississippi State out rebounded us 50-32. We had 2 guys get 10 boards. There's 20 of the 32. Nobody else got more than 3. We need guards. Our big guards, Devin,
Allen,
KD, all these guys have got to rebound the basketball. We have to have 5 guys going to the boards. But we're trying to leak out. We're trying to get out so we can run. And we need to run. We're a good transition basketball team. But my goodness, we've got to be able to secure a rebound. And it's our 2 bigs who can rebound really well, but they get too far up underneath the basket. And if it's a long rebound, they got no hope. And if you don't have guards at that second level, it's going to bite us. I hope it doesn't bite us now because everything matters now.
Yeah, that's right.
We did do better against South Carolina, and we'll talk about that. But 2 straight games to lose rebounding by 30 rebounds.
Yeah.
I guess almost 40 rebounds if you combine the 2 games, because we're 23 down at Tennessee and we were 18 down, so 41 rebounds negative. That's hard to win.
And when you say not getting the rebounds, we're not talking about getting offensive rebounds. Auburn had 7 offensive rebounds in this game, and that's about 7 to 10, about maybe upwards to 15, depending on your shots and what falls and what doesn't, is about normal. You can't. That's the second straight game, Tennessee and Mississippi State, where you get about 21 offensive rebounds. It's not like that's a good rebounding Mississippi State basketball team, but they sure looked like it against Auburn.
Yeah, and there are teams that are better. Like you said, there are teams that we're going to play that are better offensive rebounding teams. And if we don't learn how to get a defensive board, we're going to struggle. Yeah. Just stop leaking out. Everybody go to the board on the defensive end. Everybody. Yeah. And Wendell's a good rebounder for as little as he is.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had 2. But it's just you got to be able to get rebounds.
Yeah.
And let's talk about it. Sometimes our guards in this game were over penetrating and taking some bad shots. I have never seen Bruce Pearl and Stephen Pearl, by the way, go after a player
like they went after Wendell.
Like they went after Wendell after he took a shot, a layup. We ended up getting the rebound and getting fouled. Zup got fouled. But again, if you go back and watch that play
it's funny.
And watch Bruce and Stephen, they're side by side, and they look like twins. They do the exact same movements as they come out to go after Wendell Green. You don't take that shot. We don't need that shot.
Yeah,
we need time to go. And if you notice, the next time down the court, KD had a break, and he went, "No."
Yeah,
I'm not going to get yelled at like that.
Like that. Yeah.
So our guards have just got to make better decisions. They're shooting the ball better. They're going to make better decisions.
I agree, and that's not even. Yeah, I agree. That's not just the guards, because when you say the guards, I think of KD and Zep and Wendell, but I completely put Devin and Allen in that situation. Absolutely. Because Allen struggled. I don't understand. He was so bad in this game. Look, that he had that turnaround jumper that rolled around and in. That was a pretty move. That's a pretty shot. That's the Allen that we saw last year. That's the Allen that we expect to see.
Yeah.
We expect to see improvement on that. He just doesn't look like he's there at all. And it's frustrating to watch, because you know the talent, the want to is there from Allen, but it looks like it's all in his head. It looks like he's, struggling to get his shot going, which is bothering him. And he nailed his first one at South Carolina, even though he missed the rest of his shots. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I struggle to make decision-making. And Devin is the same way with his shooting. Goes 1 of 6 in this game. He hit that one again, big one.
It was big,
huge one, a huge three to put us in front in this game off the long skip pass from Jabari. But 1 for 6. There were many shots where I was just like, that's not a good shot, and he missed it. And that's not, especially in that corner on the far side on the Auburn bench. He just kept shooting that shot, and that's
he won't turn that shot down. He'll never turn that shot down.
But he needs. He's got to. He's got to understand that there's better looks you can get, and with a guy like number 10 on the floor, there's always a better look. Mm-hmm. There's always a better look than what you can getting, unless it's a Walker Kessler dunk. I think there's a better look in Jabari.
Yeah, it's. I struggled with Allen. I so am rooting for Allen to make it better and to find it, because if he finds it, we're hard to beat. Mm-hmm. But Flanagan going 1 for 6 for 2 points and 1 rebound and probably 3 or 4 turnovers minimum, 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
It's just like he can't get out of them. That's why I think Bruce went with that 3-point guard lineup, because he can't put Allen in the end of the game situation.
He was a liability.
And he's got to figure that out. And whether he figures that out before the SEC tournament or next year, I don't know. But we need him to play better. Cambridge is what he is. He's gonna keep shooting it. Mm-hmm. By the law of averages, maybe some of them will start going in. I don't know, but I wish he'd stop and do what he did. The Mississippi State had a breakaway dunk. The guy hung from the rim, pulled himself up and pulled his feet up to the backboard.
Which was a technical foul.
And we threw the ball in and went down the court, and Wendell lobbed it to Devin for the one-hand baseline alley-oop.
That's what he's got to do.
That's what I want Devin doing.
Yeah.
And defending.
That's what he's best at.
Good defender. But he only had 1 rebound.
Yeah.
He's got to get 8 or 9 rebounds.
I don't know if he has to get 8 or 9. I think he has to get minimum 5. And I think another guy like Flanagan has to get 5. And I think Wendell has to
Cardwell
get 3
only
or 4.
had 1.
Cardwell had 1. And
he's got to have more than that.
Yeah.
He had a good game. But
completely agree. Cardwell played great in both the Mississippi State and South Carolina. We'll talk about him a little bit more against South Carolina. I think he had one of his best games. I think his best game this season was against Alabama in Coleman Coliseum when Walker was in foul trouble, just because of the circumstances he was thrown into. But he had hit a great game against South Carolina and a pretty dang good game against Mississippi State. He only had 6 points, 3 for 3 from the field, only had that one rebound, but he was +9 in his 16 minutes. That is like,
he was good.
Big. Like that was big in a game that went to overtime, and he didn't play in overtime. So it was really, really, really big. But we're going to do player of the game real quick for this Mississippi State game. I think it's easy. I think it's simple. Well, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe.
I'll go different. You choose. You pick yours. I'll go different.
All right. Because there's 2.
Yeah.
And that's it. And everybody knows the 2 that we're talking about. But then we'll go ahead and start talking about the South Carolina game that happened on Saturday. But Wednesday night's MVP, I'm going to go with Jabari Smith. 9 of 13. Yeah, he had 13 shots. He had 27 points on 13 shots. He was 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 3 for 5 from 3, has 10 rebounds, has 0 turnovers and 2 assists.
Here's the difference. I heard the guys on a Carolina podcast talking about Paolo Banchero last night. He had 21 points on 23 shots. Jabari had 27 points on 13 shots.
Yeah.
His efficiency numbers are just stupid. He's a good choice for player of the game. I'll go with KD. And I guess I should, instead of player of the game, it's probably player of overtime. But we don't win that game without KD doing what he did.
Right.
But we just don't. He had 14 points, 12 of those in overtime, had 2 rebounds, 3 assists, was 5 of 5 from the stripe.
Yeah.
We don't win the game unless KD does what he did that night.
That's right.
So I think both of them are good choices, but I agree. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to Saturday's game at noon, where Auburn won the outright championship and cut the nets down against South Carolina in the newly named Neville Arena. They won this game by a score of 82-71, and to improve to 27-4 and 15-3 in the conference to win the conference. Look, Auburn looked like they were in control this entire game. It didn't, even when South Carolina went on a little run to cut the lead from 19-10. I wasn't worried at all. It just looked like, again, complete in control for Auburn to end out undefeated at home, at 16-0 at home, one of 3 teams in the SEC to do that right there, which is absurd.
Yeah, the top 4 teams in the SEC have lost 1 home game, and that was Arkansas lost to Vanderbilt when Arkansas was playing terrible in the SEC.
Yeah,
one game lost at home between those 4 teams. That
because they lost to Hofstra earlier in the year.
Yeah, well, again, I don't understand that. But I'm like you. I felt. Do I always get nervous when the league gets cut down to 5 or 7? Sure. Did I always figure that we would win that game? Yep, I did.
Yeah.
I'd never felt like, oh no, we're going to lose it. I thought we were going to lose at Mississippi State. I thought we were not rebounding well. They were scoring. We couldn't get a stop. But it was this game, the South Carolina game, that the guy on the TV said, when Auburn goes through a drought, their defense is good enough to make you go through the drought with them.
Yeah.
And you can't make up ground on them.
Yep.
And dude, Zep Jasper, Cuisinart or whatever that kid's name, number 5, is going to see Zep Jasper in his sleep.
Yeah. And Cuisinart had a great basketball game. He's a great player. He's a senior, 22 points. But I agree. He's going to see Zep in his nightmare. Zep played unbelievable defense.
Zep is such a good defender, and he's so quick and is constant motion. So I thought Zep played a great game. Zep ended up with 7 points and had a couple boards. Talk about the rebounds. You mentioned Cambridge needing to 5 or 6. He had 4 in this game.
Yeah.
Better. Cardwell had 5. Flanagan had 4 rebounds. Kessler had 6. Jasper had 2. Green had 2. Smith had 6. And Johnson had 3. That's our guards rebounding. Johnson, Jasper, and Green and Flanagan are rebounding in this game.
Yeah.
That's a difference. That helps. Huge. Changes everything.
Auburn
and we made 10 threes.
Out-rebounded in this game by 1. South Carolina out-rebounds by 1. Stevenson had 8 rebounds. There were a few that just like popped to him. I was like, okay, whatever. But no, in this game, we said earlier, and I know what you're laughing at. I wrote this down because I wanted to talk about that too. And yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so there's reports, and I wasn't at this game. We were at the Mississippi State game. I was not at the South Carolina game. A lot of people were saying that that Eric Stevenson, the number 10 for South Carolina, great shooter, went 3 of 8 from the 3, had 13 points in this game and 8 boards. Was trash talking with some Auburn students in the jungle, and one particular edge rusher, Derek Hall. And apparently was said to Derek Hall that to meet him after the game outside. I don't think that's a guy you want to run into, Mr. Stevenson. I would not want to run. I would be behind Derek Hall 100%.
So I rewatched it today. I rewatched the game today, and I had seen the Twitter discussion of how Derek Hall was getting ready to come out onto the floor after this kid
was standing on a chair to talk to Stevenson.
Yeah, I was like, Stevenson, which one's Stevenson? Wait, number 10 is Stevenson? He was going out. There was a play. He either hit a 3 right there in front of Derek Hall, second half, right there where Derek Hall's standing. And obviously Derek said something to him, and Stevenson said something running back. And they focused the camera on Stevenson, and Stevenson pointed towards his locker room, and you could see him go after. He said it a couple times. And I was like, what the? Do you not know who that dude is? He's as tall as you are and probably outweighs you by 50 pounds. And it's not an ounce of fat on Derek Hall's body.
Yeah.
And to the point where it looked like a couple of the adults that sit on that front row right there in front of the student section actually tried to calm Derek Hall down. And it looked like Derek kind of didn't say anything for the rest of the game. He kind of had his arms folded. I watched it. Kind of had his arms folded for the rest of the time. And you could tell he was like, I could just break that dude in half. And he could have. First of all, you never listen to the crowd when you're playing basketball. If you listen and respond to the crowd, they are just going to get louder.
Yeah.
They're just going to get
especially
more.
The jungle, man.
Oh, man. It's hilarious. Kid's a good ball player. Maybe not the most intelligent kid I've ever seen in my life.
Hey, Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Look, I am on a Derek Hall high because, as I said earlier, I write for the for AuburnDaily.com and their Sports Illustrated coverage. And last week I wrote an article on the edge rushers, and about a lot of it was about Derek Hall and him coming back for his senior year is huge. I want Eric Stevenson to go ask the Alabama left tackle if he really wants to meet Derek Hall outside, because I guarantee that Alabama left tackle does not want to meet Derek Hall outside, and neither does Bryce Young, the eventual Heisman winner.
I can guarantee you that left tackle doesn't. He got enough of Derek Hall in November.
In the Iron Bowl, yes.
Yeah.
Look, that was funny. We'll talk about more about the game. Just like we said earlier when we were talking about Walker Kessler, sure looked better. His shoulder looked completely better. Ended up with 11 points and 6 boards in this game, had a few blocks. Look, that second play of the game where Jabari got the ball at the baseline in the short corner area and then passed it to Walker. And I was like, what is Walker going to do with it? Like pass it out, because he was kind of high. It didn't really look like he could. It was like a tweener between a floater or a jump shot. And I was like, I don't really want Walker doing that. And Walker just said, no, I'm just going to take 2 hands. I'm going to reach as long as I can with my wingspan and my height, and I'm just going to cram it on whoever tries to get in between me and the bucket. That's what he did.
They did.
I about broke my chair. I about broke my chair, and because somebody had just hit a 3, and we got to stop, and then that happened. I was just like, oh, we're the SEC champions. This is over.
Somebody had just hit a 3. Alan Flanagan had just hit a 3.
Alan Flanagan hit a 3.
On, you got to give him credit.
He drilled one, yeah. But one for 3 this game.
That dunk was it was all Walker. It was all, I'm longer, I'm more athletic, and if you touch me, I'm going to the free throw line. Although his free throws have suffered recently, but that was just. Yeah, it looked like his shoulder was fine on that one. And then not long after that, Leor Berman got a steal and threw it to him standing under the basket. And instead of turning around, he just went up backwards and dunked it over his head. And I was like, God, I wish I could do that, because it looked like he didn't even struggle.
I don't think I've ever laughed at a dunk more than that dunk there, because you saw Walker understand where he was when he got the ball and understand how much work it would take to turn around and dunk it. So he just took it, looked up, saw the rim was right above him, and just barely put it in and hung from the rim for a little bit. And I don't think I've laughed more at a dunk than that one right there. It was great. So, yeah, Walker's shoulder looking a lot better. Goes 5 for 13 this game. Hit that big 3 early. I thought he was going to hit another 3 in the early second half, but ended with 11 points and 6 boards. Let's talk about the other guy that completes this best front court in the country. Jabari Smith continues to wow us, I think I'll say. I think if there's a word that is more that's bigger than wow, I'd use that, but I can't think of it at the top of my head. 21 points, 6 rebounds, 8 for 8 from the free throw line, and 3 for 3 from 3. Like, he's got to shoot more than 3 threes if he's making 3 for 3.
Got fouled on one of them too.
Got fouled on one of them. An incredible 4-point play. And we'll talk about kind of the shooting, not number, but balance. I think because Jabari had 3 threes. He made all 3. KD had 7 threes. And KD had a fantastic basketball game. He struggled early. He struggled to get it going. Once he made that elbow jumper, he was fine. He had 18 points. Yeah. Jabari's got to shoot more than 3 threes. And I don't think KD needs to shoot 7 threes. I think KD needs to be shooting 3 or 4, and Jabari needs to be shooting 8 or 9.
I agree. Look, and the announcer, I wish I could remember his name. It's the color guy. He played at Tennessee for Bruce Pearl. He came up with a stat, and I don't know. He said he counted. I'm sure he didn't. But the stat was Jabari has made 93 shots in SEC play with 96 dribbles. That is Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
That's Klay Thompson. That is a dumb statistic.
Yeah.
The fact that he's made 93 shots. He's only had to put the ball in deck 96 times. He made a three-pointer early in this game, coming off a screen at the top of the key, that he was facing Frank Martin when he jumped. Frank Martin's the South Carolina coach. He was facing him, jumped, turned in the air with a hand in his face, and drilled the three. And it was like, oh, wow, that's just not fair.
His next three, and his next three was a transition three. And I don't know if this man got screened, but he's never been more open on a transition three. And I was like, South Carolina, I know y'all haven't – they've been playing well as of recent, but I know y'all haven't had the best season, but it might be a little smarter to pick up number 10.
Well, all you got to do is watch some film. Jabari loves that shot.
Yeah.
He loves the transition, one dribble pull up right there at the top in the slot or at the top of the key. And yes, I think his man kind of got screened off. I think it was Zepp that was just not trying to set a screen. Mm-hmm. I think the guy just got screened off by it. And Jabari's like, nobody's going to guard me? Really? And Jabari's the type guy that if nobody guards him, I think it pisses him off.
Yeah.
Excuse it. Because he's like, you don't respect me enough to guard me? Watch. Bang. And then they guarded him so hard that they fouled him, and he still
made it. Which is just unbelievable. And then he proceeded to tell the entire South Carolina bench about it.
Yeah. He'll run his mouth.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, he will. He's got that swagger. He's got the respect that he wants from others. And if he doesn't get it, or if he feels like he's not getting enough of it, he'll make you respect him. So, a great game. Player of the game for this one, I think it's Jabari. I think as many times as he needs to solidify himself as the number one pick in the NBA draft, he will do it. I think Chet Holmgren is getting bullied in the West Coast Conference or whatever they're in, which is ridiculous.
They play tomorrow night. They play San Francisco, by the way, tomorrow night in the semifinals. Yes.
I think Paulo Banchero, just like we referenced earlier, got exposed by Leaky Black in the and by Armando Bacot in the North Carolina Duke game. I don't think he's been as consistent as Smith either.
They actually put Manick on him some.
Yeah, Brady played.
Manick did a good job on it because they had the guy that went off against them in Carolina, and they put Leaky on that guy, and he was non-existent. So Banchero's look. It all comes down to what the first team in the NBA draft needs.
Yeah.
If they need a long skinny stick, they'll get Holmgren. If they need a guy that needs 23 shots to get 20 points, they can take Banchero. Or they can get a guy like Smith who gets 21 points on 12 shots. He took 12 shots. He has 21 points. 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Ever since he had that one game where he missed like 2 free throws.
Yeah.
And they said, what's your dad going to say? He's going to say, I shoot free throws like Shaquille.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I think he's missed 1 free throw since. Yeah. So, but can we bring up what Wendell's game?
I think Wendell had one of those games where it's good to see him get back in the rhythm. And that's going to affect him into the SEC tournament because he had 10 points and 7 assists in this game. I think he had one of the better games, as well did Cardwell. I think both of them had just fantastic games, not great stat sheet games like Smith and like KD, or even a guy like Kessler. But Wendell and Cardwell both had great games, and due to the eye test and, my bias towards both of those guys, that I love both of those guys. I love all these guys, but I agree. Wendell, not incredibly efficient. 3 for 7. That's never going to be solid. Efficient. That's solid because he's shooting 80 feet. Yeah, I agree. Sure. I think the only downside about his game against South Carolina was 3 for 5 from the free throw line. He's like an 82% free throw shooter. He's
the number one free throw shooter in the SEC.
He's got to be better than that. Yeah.
And the stupid announcer said that, and he missed one.
And he missed. I know.
It's the jinx. But here's what I noticed about Wendell Green. Wendell Green does a score first point guard. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that wants to shoot the ball 10, 12, 15 times and make 3 or 4 of them.
Yep.
But what Wendell did against South Carolina was totally different. he would get by his man, get his man on his hip, and dribble into the lane and wait and be patient. And if he does that, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Because what he can do now is he can make that little 12 or 15-foot jumper if the big guy doesn't come out on him. And he showed it. If the big guy does come out on him, he's a good enough passer and ball handler that he doesn't have to hurry. He can make the passes that he needs to, or he can get around him.
That's right.
He showed a lot. I think Wendell changed his game from Mississippi State, where I think he over-penetrated and got himself in trouble, to this game where he penetrated under control and never got in trouble and was able to make passes and make shots. And I thought, was it his best game scoring-wise? Absolutely not. He can light it up when he's going from three.
Yeah.
But if he will be patient and look for people, he's still going to get a shot. But he had 2 more alley-oop passes that were fantastic to Cardwell. Both those passes were just great. But he didn't over-penetrate and get himself in trouble, and I really like that. I don't have the number of turnovers. Did he turn the ball over?
Let me check. I can check live on air right now. He did not. He had 7 assists and 0.
7 assists and 0 turnovers. Best game I've seen him play.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. He is the second highest plus minus behind Jabari. Jabari had plus 13. Wendell had plus 12 in just his 22 minutes. I think if you see a little bit more efficient shooting from him, especially from the free throw line, that's the Wendell that you want. That's the Wendell you're going to need come this week and next week and on.
Well, and it's a guy that obviously can take coaching. He got coached Wednesday night.
Oh yeah,
he got coached.
If that's what you want to call it.
And there are a lot of guys that are playing at this level that if they get coached like that, will go into a shell and will say, well, forget you. I'll just do it on my own. Yeah. He obviously did not, because you have 10 points or whatever and 7 assists and 0 turnovers. That's what you need from Wendell Green right now. So great job, Wendell Green.
Is he your player of the game?
I'll put him as my player of the game.
Sure. I'm going to go with Jabari again.
Yeah.
The dude is different when he's on the floor. Obviously, he makes the impact. I think we picked the 2 that made the biggest impact in this game, even though I love KD. I think
KD had a great game.
Yeah, I think Jabari's the player of the game. Only played 29 minutes, only shot 3 threes. I think both of those numbers need to go up. Both of those numbers.
Absolutely.
But we will transition here and end the regular season. We are the SEC champs. How about that? We win the SEC outright. We don't have to share, as said by the Auburn team as they were cutting the nets down. We ain't sharing blank. So, but we will preview the SEC tournament. What we're going to do is kind of look at some of the matchups that Auburn could have in the days that they could be on, and then we'll do our predictions for the tournament, and then we'll kind of talk about the seeding lines for the NCAA tournament and what we could see, where we could see Auburn a week from when we were recording this on Selection Sunday. So let's talk about this tournament bracket. I think it's very interesting and a few things about the tournament. It's being played in Tampa. It's the first time it's been a while. It's been in Tampa. It's normally in Nashville.
Tampa's dumb.
Kind of weird.
It's a dumb. Yeah.
Kind of weird.
I don't agree with it, but whatever.
An interesting fact to remember in this game: Auburn is the only SEC team in this SEC tournament that has played in that arena, Amalie Arena, this season. They went and played there when they went to UCF and won at UCF earlier. That's what I meant. USF. That's what I meant. Yep. But that's something to remember. You think about shooting lines. You think about, Bruce is a genius. So, but I think this tournament also lines up very interesting for the Auburn Tigers. Auburn, the games start on March 9th on Wednesday. You get Ole Miss and Missouri, and then Georgia and Vandy. You get the poverty of the league starting then. I will not be watching those. I don't have any interest in watching those games.
Oh, I'll watch them just because they're SEC tournament games.
Unless
there's another
I can't
tournament
watch
on.
Ole Miss and Missouri and then Georgia and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they were advertising.
Scottie Pippen will go for 80 in that game.
They were advertising in our game that the next game coming up was Georgia at Missouri, and I was like, "Oh, I won't watch that one."
Yeah, I think I'll go take a break before the Carolina Duke. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
but no, and then on Thursday, March 10th, there's some really interesting games. Obviously, the one that Auburn will be paying most attention to, the first game of the day, will be Florida and Texas A&M. The winner of that game will play Auburn on March 11th on Friday. Look, and then you also
rooting for the Aggies.
Yeah, then you also have the winner of Ole Miss and Missouri play against LSU right after that, and then after that you'll have Mississippi State and South Carolina, the two teams that Auburn played last in the regular season, go at each other. And then you'll have the winner of Georgia and Vandy, which I'll go ahead and say Vandy will be playing against Alabama.
I want Georgia to win just so they can beat Alabama.
Beat Alabama? Oh, goodness.
Save Tom Crean's job.
That would be interesting right there.
Tom Crean,
the winner of that will play Alabama.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Auburn's draw in this, as they were the 1 seed. They'll play the winner against Florida and Texas A&M. I think Florida will win this game. With it being in Tampa, I think there will be more Gators there. It's a neutral site floor, but I think this will be a Florida crowd. I think Florida's the better team. I think they're playing better, even though they're a seed lower. After Texas A&M's really good start to the SEC season, they kind of fell off. In Auburn's matches against both Texas A&M and then the 2 against Florida, it obviously favors the one against Texas A&M. I would much rather play the Aggies in this game. And I know you agree, because I don't like the matchup with Castleton and Auburn. I don't like Tyler Appleby being on the other side. When we went to Florida, he could shoot it out of his tail and make it. I do think Auburn is better, by far better than both of these teams. Yeah. We beat both these teams at least once. We went 1-1 against Florida twice. Look, we had the sloppiest game I think I've ever watched as an Auburn basketball fan. Again, we just completely threw it out of bounds, probably 10 times, had like 20 turnovers in that game. So I think we beat ourselves in that game more than Florida beat us. I think we'll be fine. Whoever wins this game, obviously, I would rather for Texas A&M to win, and I know you agree.
Yeah, I don't like our matchup with Castleton. I really don't like the kid, but he's made Walker look bad twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Gainesville, if we don't turn the ball over 20 times, we win that one going away with ease. And it's not in Gainesville. So although A&M has been playing better recently, I think A&M's got a chance to beat them.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see.
We'll do predictions here in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the winner of the Ole Miss and Missouri, and the winner of that plays against LSU. And the winner of that game will play against Arkansas, as they're the 4 seed. And on Auburn's side of the bracket, the winner of Auburn and Florida A&M will go play the winner of the Arkansas and whoever comes out of that. Mm-hmm. So, and then on the other side of the bracket, you've got, obviously Vandy and Alabama and Georgia. The winner of those will play against Kentucky, who's the 3 seed. And then the winner of Mississippi State and South Carolina will play Tennessee, who's the 2 seed in the bracket, which on the other side. And the winner of all of those will meet in the championship on March 13th.
Sunday.
On Sunday, Selection Sunday. On March 12th is the semifinals. It's just games every day. And just like we saw in 2019, where Auburn just went on a run as the 5 seed, as we were in LSU's spot where we played, we played Missouri first, and we played South Carolina, who was the 4 seed at the time. And then we played Florida, who had beaten the 1 seed at LSU, and beat them off Jared Harper. It was unbelievable. And then made Tennessee everything we wanted to against Tennessee in the SEC championship game. You got to do that, but only have 3 games to do that. In Tampa as the 1 seed. We're going to go ahead and do predictions because, why not? And we'll it's going to be a lot about predictions. This podcast will be a lot about predictions the next few times, as we'll probably just wait until after Sunday is completely over to record again. That way we'll know all 3 games in the SEC tournament because we are going to win the whole thing, and we'll know what draw we have in the NCAA tournament. But let's go ahead and do it. Ole Miss and Missouri. I think that could be a toss-up. Who do you have?
I'd take Ole Miss.
I'd take Ole Miss too. I agree.
Okay.
I think Ole Miss will play LSU after Florida and A&M. Georgia against Vandy. It's not happening.
That's Vanderbilt.
It's Vanderbilt. Scottie Pippen will score however many points he wanted to, and Vanderbilt will win that game. They will go on to play Alabama on Thursday as well. So Florida and A&M. I have Florida winning the game. I think it depends on what Gator team shows up. I think it very easily could depend on what Aggie team shows up.
Look, so I'll take A&M on that one.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go with Florida. I guess we both have Ole Miss and LSU. The winner of that will play Arkansas.
Yeah. LSU.
I'm gonna go with LSU as well. I think the win against Alabama on Saturday could explode them in the SEC tournament. I don't think they win more than one or 2 games with the matchup with Arkansas. I don't see how they're not a good matchup against Arkansas at all.
They had them beat last week.
Yep.
And Jalen Williams started flopping all over the floor like a dead fish. Yeah. And they called it. If they don't call that, LSU wins that game in Arkansas.
In Fayetteville, yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to Mississippi State, South Carolina.
Mississippi State, South Carolina, both teams that I said earlier, both teams that Auburn finished with in the regular season, and both teams Auburn beat. I think South Carolina's playing better basketball right now. Mississippi State got didn't they get handled on Saturday? Yeah, I'm blanking right now on who they played against.
I don't know.
I don't think they won. I think South Carolina's playing better basketball overall. I think I trust South Carolina and Frank Martin in that game more. I'm going to go with USC.
All right, I'll take Mississippi State just because of the big kid down low that was so good against us. Okay. And see if Molinar can get going. So just to be different.
We both have Vandy beating Georgia. That means it will be Alabama against Vanderbilt, which will be just an ugly game to watch. But either Vandy or Georgia wins that game. I'm not watching that.
So the winner of beat Alabama.
Vandy and Alabama will play against Kentucky. I think it's Alabama. I think
it's Alabama.
JQ or Jaden Shackelford, all they got to do is get hot one game. And
they're not
whatever Alabama team shows up. Look, they're either going to lose or they're going to play us in the SEC championship. They're going to lose first round. They're going to play us. There's no in between with that Alabama team.
Yeah. All right. So I'd take Alabama there too.
So I'm going to ask. We're just going to ask this because now we get into where on Thursday where Auburn plays and all the other top 4 seeds play. Friday. They got the double bye or Friday. That's what I meant. Friday. So you have Texas A&M playing against Auburn. I have Florida playing against Auburn. We both have LSU playing against Arkansas. You have Mississippi State playing against Tennessee. And I have South Carolina playing against Tennessee. And we both have Alabama playing Kentucky. Is there any upsets that you see in that bracket, or do you see all chalk where you see Auburn and Arkansas and Tennessee and Kentucky?
I think Auburn will win. I think the upset that could happen is the LSU Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's a 5 versus 4. They just played. And like I said, LSU had them beat.
Yep.
Jalen Williams started flopping all over the floor. And then they made enough noise, by the way, LSU fans did, I think, that it changed the way the officials called the Arkansas-Tennessee game. And Jalen Williams got in foul trouble because he flopped twice. And if they call him for that in these games, Arkansas will struggle. Yep. Note is fantastic. He's one of the best players in the league.
Yep.
But if you get Jalen Williams in foul trouble, and they're not in Bud Walton, I'll go ahead and be different and say that LSU will come out of that bracket.
Okay.
And we'll play LSU in the semis.
And then you Tennessee have Tennessee, Kentucky. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have it going chalk. I'm going to have Arkansas winning that game. I really, really like JD Note. If there's a player that I like most in the SEC that is not wearing an Auburn basketball uniform, it's him. I love his game.
Really good.
Yeah, he'd be a great Auburn transfer next year if you
yes,
know.
He would. So would Tevin Brown from Murray
State, the grad transfer. Yeah, I'd love that. All right, so now you have Auburn versus LSU, and I have Auburn versus Arkansas in the semis, and we both have Tennessee against Kentucky. I think Auburn wins whoever that is. I think a revenge game against Arkansas would be amazing.
I'd really like that. I'd really like that more than the LSU game because I want to prove that we can beat Arkansas.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think either way it'll be fun.
I agree. I think Auburn wins the game no matter who that is. Yep. And I think Kentucky beats Tennessee. Tennessee beat Kentucky in Knoxville just what, last weekend, 2 weekends ago?
A couple weekends, weekend before we went there.
Yeah, that's right. And it just didn't look like that Kentucky team wanted to be there. If the Kentucky team that played against Auburn or Kentucky
Florida
team that has played, has played against Florida and they're healthy, they could run through this SEC tournament. And
wait a minute.
They could
you sound like a Kentucky fan.
They really could. They're built
healthy.
to do it. They're built to do it.
They're very good.
I think they have to do it to get a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But I think Kentucky wins the game and moves on to the championship against Auburn.
I do too. I want to pick Tennessee because I really want to beat Tennessee. And I don't want to play Kentucky again. It's going to be a good game. And if we've made it to the championship game, then I think we're playing pretty well. And it'll be fun to watch a rematch with Kentucky. I think Kessler got the best of Sheboy in that game at Auburn. And it didn't count because Ty got hurt. But
right.
Whatever.
That's right. And we don't know what because I'm not a Kentucky basketball fan, nor am I a Kentucky basketball follower, because apparently the world does not revolve around them, and Kentucky fans do not know that. So I do not know the injury status of both Sabia Wheeler and Ty Washington.
Both played Saturday.
Okay, yeah. Both of those guys are absolutely crucial to this Kentucky team's success because they're not that deep. They really are not that deep. And they're really top heavy. And yes, Sheway is the SEC player of the year. And yes, he is maybe the national player of the year due to the numbers he's putting up. Mm-hmm. But just like you said, I think Kessler got the better of him in the matchup at Auburn, where the students were camping out for the first time. And I think a matchup between those two, both on more than 3-game win streak, I think would be fantastic. I think it'd be a great game on a neutral site floor if both teams are healthy and Wheeler and Washington are back. I think Auburn wins, though, if that's the case. I would also love to see Tennessee beat Kentucky because that would mean I would have 3 straight revenge tour games to win the SEC tournament with Florida, Arkansas, and Tennessee, the 3 teams that we lost to in the regular season. That'd be fun. I'd love to be able to beat Tennessee because I think we're better than them too.
I do too.
So both of us have an Auburn winning the SEC tournament. Of course, this is a different game now. The SEC tournament is a one or go home, but it's not one and you're done. It is one and go home. So if we lose, it's not the end of the world for Auburn, but man, would it be huge to go and dominate this league. And you would guarantee yourself a number 1 seed. And we're going to take that segment right into it to talking about predictions for where Auburn ends up in the NCAA tournament. Look, I think there's 2 guaranteed 1 seeds right now. I think there's 2 locks. That's Gonzaga and Baylor. I think no matter what they do in their conference tournaments, they are the 1 seeds. I don't know why, but that's how it is. That's what everybody is saying. So
it is what it is, yeah.
I think Arizona and Auburn are the other 2. I don't know what order you put those 2 in. I think it really depends on what Arizona does in the Pac-12 and what Auburn does in the SEC tourney. So, it just depends. You've got to be able to win when it's pressure. And Auburn's shown that they've been really good on neutral site floors. The only loss on the neutral site floor was the double overtime loss to UConn in the Bahamas. So the Arizona, the 16-point loss to Colorado still stings with me. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how you do that. but I think Auburn's better than Arizona. And the 4 other teams that I've written down are Kansas. I think Kansas would have to blow through the Big 12 tournament to get a 1 seed.
They got to win the Big 12.
And I think they would need help from a Florida to knock Auburn down, or help from somebody in the Pac-12 to knock Arizona down. I think that's the only other one, unless Kentucky completely wipes through this SEC tournament and dominates every single game and Auburn loses in the first round. I think they can stick into that last number 1 spot over a team like Auburn or over a team like Arizona. Duke, I think Duke is a 2 after that loss to North Carolina. They're not in the conversation.
Yeah.
And I wrote Wisconsin down, and I just saw that they lost to Nebraska. So no.
Let me just, the only thing about Kentucky that I would not necessarily argue, but they're the 3 seed in SEC. They're not even a 2 seed in the SEC. So I think it's going to be very hard to put them on the 1 line.
I agree.
Yes, they can blow everybody out, but I don't see them they didn't blow Florida out this past weekend. So I don't think they're going to go in and just wipe them. They're not that type of a team.
I agree.
So I think you're right. It's Gonzaga and Baylor. I don't understand either one of those really, but okay. Arizona's loss to Colorado was horrible. They also lost in Knoxville earlier on in the year. So they're okay. When I say they're okay, matchup wise against Auburn, they're probably one of the tougher matchups with Auburn. Duke is not going to be a 1 seed.
No.
I know they want to because it's Coach K's final tournament, but
it's not how it works.
And I think if Auburn wins 1 game, if they beat Florida or A&M, I think you got to put them on the 1 line. Because I think they're there now. Kansas is not there. Kansas, I think you're right, has to win the Big 12. After losing to TCU last week, I think they've got to win the Big 12.
And only beating Texas, needing overtime to beat Texas.
In
Allen Fieldhouse the other night. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
If you put them on the 1 line, Kentucky's going to go, we went to Allen Fieldhouse and beat them by like 80.
Yeah.
So that's dumb.
Yeah.
So, but Kansas is a good team. Their big guy's good.
McCormick.
He's big, strong, can play, and they've got a shooter that didn't make a shot against
Texas. The only problem with McCormick is the only game I've watched of David McCormick is the game that we beat them in the second round, and Anthony McLemore tore him to shreds. Anthony McLemore was just better.
He's better than that now. And then they've got Abu Jabi or whatever his name is, that he didn't make a shot against Texas, which was weird.
He didn't make a shot. He went 0 for 10.
Weird, because he's a better player than that.
He's like the Big 12 Player of the Year, and he went 0 for 10.
Yeah, it was bad.
But we will go ahead and get out of here. This was a mega podcast. This was the longest podcast that I've ever done on this network. How
long we got?
It was a fun one. I have no idea. Poor Kyle has to edit this. I don't even know.
Enjoy it,
hopefully
Kyle.
We didn't make it too bad, but we'll go ahead and get out of here. We will be back to discuss where Auburn lines up in the NCAA tournament and to recap the SEC tourney. Hopefully Sunday night. We'll probably be getting that out on next Monday morning.
Favorite time of year.
This is an amazing time of year. Enjoy it
this week.
This week and next week is so much fun.
Watch the smaller tournaments. Watch Murray State last night win their tournament. By the way, they're 30-2. 30-2. One of those losses is to us. Watching some of these like the OVC and the Big South and they're fun to watch. By the way, watch them because those are the first round opponents.
Yeah.
That
you can see a team that you can
is who the 16 and 15 seeds are.
Yeah, those lower majors, and then you can see a higher mid major in the second round if you wanted to, with the 8-9 being after you hit the 16 if you hit the 1 line. So we'll go ahead and get out of here. Oh, please don't. That would be awful.
Don't put Murray on our thing.
We'll go ahead and get out of here. If you want to find all things that we do on the network, you can find us on the YouTube channel, the E2C Network YouTube channel. Kyle does all kinds of great stuff, post game and videos and live streams and all kinds of great stuff there. Or you can find us on Twitter at E2C_network. You can find my dad on Twitter at IAMCTO, or you can find me on Twitter at Gray Oldenburg, or on Instagram at Grayo21. We'll get out of here. Enjoy this time of year. It's fun. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.